and welcome back to Mac School Prep TV. Today, we're going to be discussing the art of slaying an interview, as whether you like it or not, you will be doing interviews for the rest of your life. Now, if you do not know, my name is Mackenzie Warren. I'm the founder of Mac School Prep, and my goal is to do everything in my power to help you put your best foot forward in the classroom. Now, before we go ahead and get this ball rolling, I just want to give you a friendly reminder now to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell so that you don't miss a beat. And on that note, no more delay. It's time. Let's get it. Like I said during the introduction, interviews don't just pertain to the college application process, as they're also relevant if you're applying for scholarships, a job, etc. However, on the topic of college, interviews that are a part of the college application process are generally optional. I mean, for example, the Ivy League colleges only recommend that applicants do an interview, and in other situations with schools like Duke and Northwestern, you might be invited to do an interview based on whether you expressed interest in doing one in your application, and also based on whether alumni of the school live near you. With that said, you might feel extremely tempted to pass on doing an interview in these cases in order to avoid stress or what you might perceive to be a hassle. But if you can remember what I advised in a previous MSP video where the college application process is concerned, always treat recommended as though it's synonymous with required. And besides, there's way more upside than loss that can come out of doing an optional college interview. Therefore, unless you are a terrible communicator and people tend to be completely turned off after having met you, then my general rule of thumb is to seize opportunities to interview with colleges and universities, and I want to give you a few key reasons explaining why. Number one, an interview allows you to show your sincere interest in a college or university because you're taking time out of your schedule to meet with a representative of the school. And at the end of the day, people tend to invest their time in the things that they care about. Number two, a college interview is a laid back and friendly conversation that typically takes place with an alumnus or admissions officer of the school you're interested in. They not only allow you to advocate for and sell yourself beyond what your resume and essays reveal about you, but they also give you the opportunity to learn more about a particular school so that you can see if that certain school you have your sights set on really is a good fit for you. And number three, an optional college interview really isn't an outright maker or breaker, but it can be extremely useful if the college admissions committee is trying to decide between two applicants, as an interview allows the college to put a three-dimensional human with a unique personality to the data. Alrighty, so moving into the actual interview advice, I want to throw it out there as part of pro tip number one that regardless of whether your interview is in person or virtual, so over a software like Google Hangouts or Skype, your interview is the time to walk the talk of your application and prove that you are who you say you are. In other words, if your resume screams that you are a leader, it should be extremely obvious to your interviewer that you carry yourself like a leader in social situations and that you weren't just putting up a facade in the written portion of your application. For all these reasons, it's extremely important that you have a really good grasp of who you truly are at heart, because especially in the preliminary phase of an interview, you can expect to be asked questions about your strengths, your weaknesses, your hobbies, your interests, and your goals, because the purpose of an interview is to flush out what makes you you, what makes you special, and what makes you more worthy of XYZ position over your competition. With that said, you should definitely have a 30 to 45 second elevator pitch or spiel prepared for when the interviewer says to you, tell me about yourself, or some variation of that prompt to ease into the actual interviewing component. Now, because that request is undeniably super open-ended and vague, which can understandably be the source of some frustration on your end because you're probably thinking, well, how exactly am I even supposed to answer this? You might want to clarify with the interviewer what exactly he or she wants to know. That way you don't end up giving some super long-winded response and you don't end up telling the interviewer about something that they're not even interested in. However, if you don't feel comfortable being assertive in that situation and having the interviewer pin down exactly what it is that they want to know about you, then don't fret, because you can never go wrong with highlighting your personality and discussing the qualities that you possess, as well as the experiences and successes that you've had that make you a good fit for the opportunity and position. Additionally, you should also come to an interview ready to succinctly articulate why you're interested in the opportunity that you're applying for and why you're more deserving of it over others, which means that you will certainly need to do some research beforehand so that you can get your thoughts in working order. On the topic of elevator pitches, I just want to throw it out there that you never want to come across as rehearsed or superficial. If you are someone who chooses to look up common interview questions, then that's completely fine. Feel free to brainstorm ideas so that you can get your mind going in the right direction, but just never ever memorize anything, because in an interview, you should just focus on being natural and transparent, as well as speaking from the heart. All in all, the final thing that I have to say in regards to pro tip number 1 is just be honest and be yourself in every possible way. Meaning, don't be someone you're not or someone you think you're supposed to be to look impressive. I mean, just trust me when I say that it's very, very easy for others to see straight through insincerity, which of course is not going to score you any brownie points whatsoever. Alrighty, for my pro tip number 2, arrive about 10 to 15 minutes before your scheduled interview, and if you need some reinforcement for why timeliness is so important, you should just remember that early is on time is late, and late is unacceptable. Also, while you're waiting for your scheduled interview to begin, be sure to silence your cell phone to eliminate any potential distractions during your interview. Transitioning to pro tip number 3, bring extra copies of your resume to give to your interviewer, and make sure that you have a professional email address listed on all of them. I also want to throw it out there that you should feel free to have a copy of your resume in front of you during the interview to jog your memory, but just make sure that you do not whatsoever read word for word from the document. Pro tip number 4 I have for you is wear business professional attire, because you never want to be too casual. In all honesty, it's always better to be overdressed than underdressed. If you're a boy, you can't go wrong with some dress slacks, some dress shoes, and a nice button down or polo. If you're a girl, on the other hand, you can't go wrong with a conservative dress or a conservative blouse with a skirt or dress pants, and with anything that you decide to wear, dress shoes are the way to go. I also want to recommend that you avoid wearing anything that's low cut or that shows too much skin, and you definitely do not want to wear any loud, tacky, or distracting jewelry. The reason that the way you dress is important, not just in an interview setting, but also at school, at work, in other environments, etc., is because it speaks volumes about your maturity and professionalism, which means that your fashion choices truly can determine whether the people around you take you seriously. Also, speaking of people taking you seriously and giving you respect, now is a really good time for me to mention that you want to be super careful about the words and the photos you post on your social media platforms, because you really never know who could be looking at your profile, and you don't want to be denied an opportunity because an interviewer, a college admissions officer, a job recruiter, etc. got the wrong idea. Okay, time for pro tip number 5. Interviews are great tools to assess your verbal communication skills, which is why you should pay attention to your speaking volume, focus on being articulate, enthusiastic, and professional at all times. Avoid using crutch or filler words such as and like, and also seek clarification if you don't comprehend the interviewer's question. Something else I have for you is that it's extremely important that you be astute and perceptive so that you can accurately read the vibe of your interviewer and adapt accordingly. For example, if your interviewer is extremely outgoing and you're more shy, it might serve you well to add a little bit more passion and gusto behind your words. On the other hand, if your interviewer is extremely reserved and standoffish and you are someone who is very extroverted like me, it might not be a bad thing to rein in some of your energy. Some other advice I have for you is maintain professionalism at all times. I've encountered plenty of interviewers who are super laid back and who curse and swear without a care in the world, but never take that as a cue for you to just let your hair down and start conversing with your interviewer as though they're your best friend or your peer. My final recommendation for pro tip number 5 is you need to understand that pauses are okay. As long as you give your interviewer forewarning, it's completely acceptable to take 10 to 15 seconds to ponder questions that are difficult, because in all honesty, the first response that pops into your mind is not always going to be the best one. Moving on to pro tip number 6, monitor your body language. This means sit up straight and have a confident posture, as well as smile and have calm, inviting facial expressions. You also want to make eye contact with the interviewer, lean in slightly, and occasionally nod your head to just let them know that you're following the conversation, that you're actively listening, and that you truly are engaged and interested in whatever it is that you guys are talking about. In addition, I know it's easier said than done, but try your very best to avoid nervous behavior like fidgeting, playing with your hair, bouncing your legs up and down, because in all honesty, that stuff can be super, super distracting for the interviewer and for you. On the downhill, I'd now like to address pro tip number 7, and that is prepare in advance 3 to 5 of your own thought-provoking questions to ask your interviewer at the end of the interview so that you can demonstrate a sincere interest in the opportunity that you are applying for. Now, when I said thought-provoking questions, I'm basically just advising you to not ask your interviewer any common sense type of question in which the answer can be easily found online with a quick Google search. Last but certainly not least, pro tip number 8 is at the end of the interview, ask for your interviewer's business card or email address so you can send them a simple, personalized email that same day thanking them for their time. And when I say simple, I really mean simple. In other words, this thank you email should be something that's short and sweet. And I say this because if you're extra and you do anything that's too over the top, you're most likely gonna come across as though you're trying too hard, which is definitely not the impression that you wanna leave whatsoever. Now, with that, we have officially wrapped up this video all about the art of slaying an interview, and I can say with full confidence that after all of those super duper informative pro tips, you are ready to knock the next interview that you have out of the park. Home run, baby. But before you go, I just want to give you a friendly reminder now to give this video a thumbs up if you didn't do it at the beginning, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell so that you can stay in the loop with anything and everything that I have to offer. And I will be sure to see you very soon. Alrighty,